time across ops work. So I don't know. I spend all day arguing with people on Twitter. They're stupider than me, poorer than me, and less successful and less open. And I guess they're more modest, so they've got that going for them. And it just, after a while, it just beats my brain. And, you know, like, I know everything I'm bad at. I know everything I suck at. And these guys just suck worse. It's terrible. Never learned anything from the market. If you can't understand why coin is in the top 10, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand market you are participating in, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand your competitors' weaknesses, trends, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand how to take their customers from them, you need to shut the fuck up. I started my first business out of my front yard from fucking scratch, from nothing, right? I've been a serial success over and over and over again. I retired 2003, 6 years before Bitcoin was fucking invented. I've made and lost more money than they will have ever earned in their entire life. I've hired and fired more people than they will ever interact with professionally in their entire life. I called the 20K Christmas 6 months ahead of time. If you cannot understand why coin is in the top 10, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand market you are participating in, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand your competitors' weaknesses, trends, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand how to take their customers from them, you need to shut the fuck up. Understand why coin is in the top 10, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand market you are participating in, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand your competitors' weaknesses, trends, you need to shut the fuck up. If you cannot understand how to take their customers from them, you need to shut the fuck up. Because you do not know what you are doing. You do not understand the market that you are participating in. If you do not understand your competitors, their strengths, their weaknesses, how to take their customers from them, how to get customers that they don't have access to, how to outprice them. If you don't understand these things, you don't understand shit about business.
And we are live. Hello world, this is the unrekt pirate crew coming to you from the far reaches of the world, the deep like North Queensland I'm in. And yeah, we're going to have really special guests lined up for tonight. Dip Catcher, before I bring him on, I'm just going to bring Sammy Chicker, who has just entered the space. Sammy Chicker, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Excellent. Love the braids. They look hot.
Oh, thank you. Just jumped in the shower and yeah, Sunday afternoon. Got to have a quick shower. You see my washing on the line, my undies and all that. So excuse that.
Beautiful. Yeah, the people are going to be focusing in on those, I suppose. But so
how are you? All right.
I'm fantastic. Yeah, just been in the Pulse chat, just kind of like trying to work out what's happening and what's going on, getting all these little nuggets of information and kind of trying to extrapolate and throw ideas around about what he could do. But we've got Dip Catcher backstage, so I'm going to bring him on now. He's been doing some amazing streams and is really quite a futuristic thinker. And it's a real absolute privilege to have him on. Hello, Dip Catcher.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me.
Hey, Dip Catcher, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks. Since I was joining the Australian hex stream, I went to the store looking for like an Australian beer. All I could find is Foster's, which I know,
cool.
like not even, so I tried my best. I was looking for VB. Is that the that's
Victoria, but you couldn't find it?
No, I couldn't find it, so I'm stuck with Foster's, in solidarity
cool.
with you all.
Yeah, chin chin.
How are you all doing?
Good. What time is it over there, Dip Catcher?
7 o'clock. I'm in California. Yeah.
Friday night, yeah. Saturday night.
Saturday.
Yeah. It's 12 noon here. You 12 noon too, Blue Bum?
Yep. Yeah, Australian Eastern Seaboard's all on the same time now for a while, which makes it a bit more easy or less complicated for us to work out timings. Yeah. So hello
They do daylight.
Yeah,
there daylight?
there's all sorts of different daylight saving crap that goes on. Like it was that like we were in the same time zone, Sammy Chicker and I, but for some reason that we were an hour behind about a month ago, and then her state like changed their time, and so now we're all in the same time. And there's also another state in Australia which is half an hour off, which I don't understand how that works out. Like I thought time zones were only in the hour. I don't know how you have half an hour. But anyway,
Yeah, that's crazy. There should be one time zone, and they should change across the whole world. Like everywhere should have the same.
That's my idea. That's totally my idea.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, what we should also have is a year should be 360 days, and then the 5 days is like a year end. So those aren't part of any month. And rather than having like months and then weeks, we should just have 36 10-day, kind of like week months.
Yeah.
And in there you work 3 days, you take off 4, and then you work 3. Or you like a 2 2, 3 2 3, and so then you just have more weekends. Like so, your weekend increases by 50%.
For
but
sure.
Then you longer weeks. So that's what I'm pushing for.
That extra 5 days can be like, instead of a weekend, it can be year end.
Mm-hmm.
So every year you get 5 days where it's like a carnival.
It's kind of like what our, like at least in the US, like between Christmas and New Year, like those are kind of like a kind of a wash. It's like the same thing, but I think that we could solve all those issues in one solution with just like 10-day weeks, throughout like 36.
Like time zones are ridiculous. Like there's actually an island, some islands in between Russia and America, where they have like an 8-hour difference in their time. So it's like a 30-kilometer distance is 8 hours difference.
Really?
So if you see one island, you're looking at the future, and the other island, you're looking at the past. And it's just ridiculous. Everywhere should be one time. It's just that in different parts of the world, we start work or go to sleep at different times, or have sunset and sunrise at different times.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just gets too confusing.
Yeah. Well, that's the next project after we become
that's what we'll do next. We're
trillionaires of the world.
Reorganize the Gregorian calendar. We're just gonna throw it away and start fresh.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly say hi to everyone in the chat. Hi, David and Pay Me Hex, Papa Laba, Sapper, you'll be very, and JFK, Sapper, you'll be very, very entertained to hear. Unrekt Pirate is not able to make it on stream today because he's in his Land Rover with a broken down gearbox somewhere in Queensland, in between Brisbane and Cairns, I think. So it's a shame we haven't got Unrekt on today, and I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be coming on, but if they are, then they're more than welcome to. Jexer, I know 43's got the kids, so he's probably listening. Hi, Day 43.
Hello.
Yeah, so let's just jump straight into it. Like Dipcatcher, I've been loving your streams. I started watching you when you were giving these streams to a whole lot of people, and you had some friends, I guess, or women in there, and other people, and you were trying to just like describe to them what hex. Hey, Sammy, can you turn off that sound? Is that cool?
Yeah, sure. It's just notifications. If I turn it off, then my sound will go down. Sorry, just mute me.
Okay. Well, just put your hand up if you want to speak, yeah?
All right.
You can do the socials. So yeah, like I was really impressed with those streams where you were really like explaining hex to lay people and spelling it out, and we were just discussing on the stream like how those people have all gone. Do you want to just give a quick précis as to what's happened to that kind of group of people?
Yeah. So I mean, those are all people that I talk to regularly. Most of them, they're either just friends that I've had just like growing up, or people that I've just kind of gotten to know along the way. And so, kind of like that group of people, I have my own, private Telegram chat that they're all in. We talk about crypto and all types of crypto stuff, a lot, mainly Hex, just cause like that kind of there's always something to talk about that. But, even things outside of Hex, we talk a lot about. And, a lot of them, they've really gone from like 0 to 1 where like, now they're the ones explaining to people, like onboarding them, teaching them how to do it. And so I think those streams that we were doing over the summer where we would all just like get on and people would ask questions, that was really good for them to learn. And it was even good that I think that's like, during those streams is really where I learned a lot about it, cause if like, people are coming to me asking me to, what's going on, I had to like really, kind of like absorb it. And, so that I really that kind of made me really fall in love with just getting on camera and just kind of like really reflecting on these things, because it's good information for others, but then it's also a good way for me to like start to understand these things in more detail.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Like when you have to explain it to somebody else who is starting from zero, it makes you have to really understand it, because they come up with all these questions and you have to really give analogies and nut it down in terms of the actual mechanics and everything. And so it also shows your own holes. Like I've also kind of like when I've realized I've had holes in my knowledge when I've had to explain it to people. And then there's things that I don't fully understand. So that's a really important process, I think, in terms of your own understanding, is to be able to explain it to other people. Yeah. So
absolutely.
So why don't you just let's start off. Why don't you just tell us about your crypto journey? When did you first come across crypto, and what was the journey towards coming to Hex?
Yeah. So, I got into crypto in like mid 2017. I had heard of it like going back way before, but the first place I ever saw anything like Bitcoin related was at the MIT bookstore. They had a Bitcoin ATM. This was in like 2014 or 2015. And when I saw that, I thought it was just like a MoneyGram or like a Coinstar or like something like that. So I didn't really care because I just had no use for that type of thing. So I didn't really know anything about Bitcoin at all. But then in 2017, that was when like the price really started running, and that kind of got my attention. And then at that time, I was working on a 3D virtual reality content sharing platform. It was my first startup. My background's in optical engineering, so I was doing a lot of work in like 3D camera systems and machine vision and lenses and lasers and all this stuff like that. And so I started working on my own, just a 3D camera idea. And so I was building this app, and then we were trying to figure out how to like help content creators monetize. And so we started thinking about like using crypto to do that. And then at that time there was an ICO that had launched called Simple Token. And it was like a platform for launching your own tokens inside your app. And so I just reached out to them in the Telegram chat and said that I was building an app that I wanted to like help content creators monetize. And they ended up giving me this grant where over the course of 2 years, they actually funded my startup. And so it was like over 2 years, I was getting like my startup's like only source of income was this token. It was called Simple Token. And so every month, like the contract from the ICO would send me my like unlock my whatever portion was unlocked that month. And then there was a market for it. It traded on Binance. And so I'd have to like trade that for like Bitcoin and then trade the Bitcoin for dollars. And that was how I was like, paying for these 3D cameras, paying for hosting on the app. So I really got into crypto, not so much from like an investment, side of it, more of like, that was like my money for my startup. And so I was kind of thrown into the fire of like, knowing how to like manage funds, just because that was how, my virtual reality camera startup was just getting off the ground. And so that's like what kind of threw me into it. Looking back, if I would have just held that crypto, like not held the Simple Token, like that's in the gutter, but like, all the Bitcoin that I'd spent through that, like, oh my gosh, it'd be a different story. But, and so that really kind of taught me, like the opportunity cost where if like, you sell your crypto, you may never even see that amount ever again. And so that really kind of like changed my perspective and had me focusing on like things that you're willing to like hold forever, that like you won't sell for anything. And so that's, you know, I like kind of coming from that where I went from, you know, kind of like using crypto kind of like currency where I was just in like cash where I was like willing to spend it. You know, and then when that startup was, you know, when I was wrapping that up, I was literally like dead broke. And then I sold my truck because I wasn't going to let a whole nother crypto cycle pass me by. And so, you know, kind of got back in the game that way. And then I was eager to sell my truck to buy Bitcoin at that time because that was when the Bitcoin free claim snapshot was apparently going to happen. And so I was getting ready for that. And, you know, then that happened, you know, months later. But then, you know, so I was, you know, kind of plugged into Hex, you know, because I was learning a lot when I was trying to like manage my crypto funds for my startup. I was actually learning a lot from Richard Hart's videos. Like he was like the two people that I really learned a lot from are Trace Mayer and Richard Hart. And so I was kind of plugged into, you know, just kind of like, you know, what Richard was doing at that time. He was working on the computational fluid dynamics token. He had this idea for it's called useful proof of work. It was kind of a crazy idea that he'd started working on before he pivoted the idea to Hex, what it is now. But so, you know, I was kind of on the lookout for that early on. And, you know, so I've just kind of been rocking with Hex, you know, since before it was Hex. And, you know, and since it's, you know, launched, it really has exceeded everything that I thought it would be, you know, because, you know, like, because, you know, with that other ICO Simple Token that I was kind of part of like the launch and, you know, part of that ecosystem, like that just kind of crashed and burned. I mean, the price ran, like it definitely pumped, but then it just died forever. And so you know, I've kind of been part of these like kind of like early stage cryptos before. And like what's unique about Hex from just like that one is that like that one didn't like have like serious staying power, you know, whereas like, you know, Hex, I think it really has proven that it's definitely here to stay. And, you know, so I've really, you know, kind of enjoyed, you know, just seeing how Hex has evolved like through all this time. It's been real exciting to be a part of.
Yeah. So with that Simple Token, what happened? Did the price just crash and then the people working on it couldn't afford to keep kind of doing it, or?
Yeah. So I made a couple of videos kind of on that, like what makes a token die, or like what are, you know, good and bad like token distribution dynamics. Because that was really the problem. Like there are a couple of problems. One was that, you know, like it was like that was like the definition of a promise coin. Like the token launched, but then the platform wasn't launched, and so they raised all this money, and then now they're having to like hire and like pay all these people, and so they're paying people in the ETH that they raised, and then they also are paying people in Simple Token. So like they were paying me in Simple Token, you know, and I was just like one of like the, you know, handful of people they're also paying. So like there's all these people getting Simple Token every month for 2 years,
dumping it onto the market.
And like there was really no there was no like I truly didn't even need to deliver anything. Like I actually I contributed to like some code to Simple Token, but you know, like I truly could have just like some people that I knew that got that grant, they literally just took the money and didn't even talk to the people. Like I was actually pretty engaged, but yeah. So they were just like paying people, they're giving away the token for free to people who were just dumping it. So that was like constant downward pressure. They had like all these tiers of like, they had the pre-sale to the VCs, then the pre-sale. And so they had all these people that got it at artificially low prices that like, as soon as their like lockup period was over, they're just like dumping. So like having those like early investors that got in at artificially low prices, that definitely hurt the price. You know, all the people they were paying in the token, that hurt the price. And just the use case, it wasn't like a use case for hoarding. Like hoarding is what makes the price go up. Like that's why Hex goes up, is because people hoard it for 15 years. You lock it up and throw away the key. But with the Simple Token, the use case was like in-app currency. And so with that, they, you know, like the use case, they're like people weren't buying it to hoard it. You know, you know, and also I think timing has an issue with it, where it launched at the beginning of 2018. And so that was like at the beginning of 2018. So that was like peak 2017, like ICO, hysteria where there's just like craziness in the market. So like the price ran from like 6 cents to like $1.40, but then it just like dumped, forever. And so like just the timing of it was bad because, it was like at the tail end of that before like a long bear market. And in that type of setting, coins like that were like the first ones to die. So there are a couple things that I think contributed to why Simple Token didn't work. Even though it was actually like a really qualified team and like they actually did build what they said they were going to build. But like just the use case wasn't something that was going to drive people to hoard it for 15 years. People were buying it to spend it. And if you're buying it to spend it, you're really just buying it to sell it. And so you might push the price up, but then you're pushing it right back down. So the use case wasn't suited for really going up in price over a long period of time.
Yeah, that's brought up a lot of things, especially around the Pulse token and a few possibilities there. But first up, before we get into Pulse, I'd like to just get into Hex a little bit. I recently did a couple of like videos looking at EIP 2929 and what kind of effect that would have on stakes and whether people should be ending their stakes early and throwing them out later, and if you do have a stake coming up, how much is the minimum amount and stuff like that. And then I just noticed before you put out a tweet that said EIP 2929 could be beneficial to hexagons in the long term. And so I was curious as to what your thinking was on that.
Yeah. So for people that haven't watched those videos, I just was trying to really understand what the effect of this change in Ethereum that's causing the cost of ending a stake to go up by about 2.7 times. So I think starting like a day ago or whenever it was, the cost of ending a stake just dramatically increased. And so what this is going to do is it effectively prices out a lot of really small stakes, where if you have stakes that are below some threshold, you are going to pay more in Ethereum than the stake is worth to unlock. And so that it truly sucks for the people who maybe had like just like small stake, maybe test stakes, or like the people that had like rather than like a couple big stakes, they had like a lot of little stakes that they maybe started when the gas fees were 1% of what they are. And so what the reason why it's bullish for the price is that, one, a lot of the coins that the market was preparing to come onto the become part of the circulating supply are now permanently locked. And so like I think on one of the videos I tried to find all of the stakes that kind of fit this category, and it's like it's like something like 8 to 12% of the hex that was set to end stake over the next 2 years was going to be permanently locked. And so now like those coins that were like 1 or 2 year stakes, they kind of turn into max length stakes because they bleed out over 2 years, and then those get redistributed.
Well, actually, they only get redistributed if somebody runs good accounting on them.
Yeah, that's right. So they're permanently locked in that case.
Probably because it's not really worth anyone because it's so expensive to good account them, as well as like just a little bit less than end staking, and so they'll probably just be shares in the system until the end of time.
Yeah. And so what that does is it like, so those coins are like permanently locked. Like those coins will never show up for sale. And so it's just like a reduction in the potential saleable supply of hex. And so that's just, that's bullish for the price because those coins aren't going to show up for sale. Now, when they were meant to come unstaked, and if they're not being recirculated to the, through the staker class, like, if no one good accountings them, then those are done. And so, it's like, it's just like a supply shock. That's like in Bitcoin, like the 4-year halving cycle that causes these like boom and bust cycles. That's mainly driven by every 4 years, it becomes twice as expensive to mine. And that's kind of the effect that this EIP 2929 has, is that suddenly it's 3 times as expensive to mine hex, because you now have to factor in this, the increase of the, that S load function that, every day that your hex is staked to calculate the interest, it's using that function. And so it's like the difficulty of hex staking just increased. And so what that does is it one just pushes stakes longer, because if you have a certain number of hex, in order to minimize the impact of that, you need to leverage the longer pays better to just get more shares per hex and earn more interest per hex to counteract that. Just to counteract that. So so what it may converge to is that stakes, if they're short term, they're either massive, so that they don't even because if you have a ton of hex, that increase doesn't really matter to you. So we're probably going to see the average stake length increase, and we may actually see less hex actually staked. So the APY for the people that do stake is going to be higher, and so that's going to attract more larger players who they don't care about that increase, because they're staking massive amounts. So I think overall, it makes hex more scarce. It makes those T shares even more scarce, because there's the cost to get them, but then there's also the cost to exercise them. When you and so it overall I think hurts the consumer use case of hex, like small scale hex staking, it's infeasible.
Yeah, for sure. It is at the moment. There's not a lot of people that are staking because of the high gas fees, and that's probably why we're seeing some sideways action. I mean, apart from the fact that a lot of Hexican community are waiting for the Pulse token, want to spend their dough on that. But I suppose big players are not going to care about gas price. It's only the little guys like us. It's these little, little stakes that is going to be there until Pulse comes, and then we'll try and salvage what we have out of those, just us little guys.
Yeah, and it sucks because it's kind of outside of the control of that. It's something that even something that I did realize was that the first time I looked in Telegram in all the hex chats, and the first time that this increase was mentioned, Richard mentioned it over a year ago, when someone had asked why the max length hex stake was 5,555, and it originally was supposed to be 30 or 50 years. I can't remember, but 50. The reason why, it was supposed to be the 50-year stake. The reason why he capped it was because of the risk that they were going to increase the cost. So he already kind of had this and had this risk factored into it.
I actually think it was a limitation of that S load, that it couldn't. It was just it wouldn't be able to actually calculate that many years, because it'd be so many adding up of so many days.
Yeah, because there's there's the gas cost, there's the gas price, and then there's the gas limit. And so doing that so many times would have met that gas limit. And so it just it would have broke the contract. So he that was this was kind of something kind of known in advance. But it was something that you couldn't predict that was going to happen, and no one was thinking about that, because a lot of these stakes that are the stakes that are really going to be impacted by this are the people that bought hex a year ago, and then have the 1 and maybe 2 year stakes, where maybe it wasn't that much. I mean the price has gone up a lot, so that kind of helps, but even still, it comes out to just over $1 a day. At current gas prices, per day staked, it's $1 of gas, just about at current prices. And that's because the gas price is high right now. So that's a big driver in it. The big drivers are the exchange rate between Hex and Ethereum, just the price of Hex, and the price of Ethereum. And then also the gas price. just how congested the blockchain is. When there's lots of NFT stuff, lots of DeFi stuff, lots of rug pulls going on, like that, and like the trading arbitrage bots. Now that that's kind of been solved, like I think that might help a little bit. But there are kind of all these other things that are competing for that block space, and it's really valuable. Like that's the thing is like you can't really hate on Ethereum for being expensive when it's like it's kind of like that saying like like, oh, that restaurant's too crowded, no one wants to go there because it's too crowded. It's kind of like that where like there's a lot of big business happening on Ethereum. Yeah.
Sorry, but having said that, I mean, when Vitalik bought out Ethereum and you were doing like, transactions for less than a cent and everyone started building on it because that was an important feature, and now everything's built on it, and now these gas prices are just going sky high. So it was a bit of a, it's a bit of a letdown, really. Dipcatcher, have you looked into other coins that are suffering from these massive gas prices, or it's not only Hex, is it?
So I know that like all the fake Hex clones, like they were already struggling on gas, and I imagine that this probably hurt them too. And so I haven't looked too deeply at other things. I do know that there's a platform called it's a coin and like it's a Ethereum futures exchange called FutureSwap that I had asked the question in one of their Discord chats about when we could list Hex on there, which would allow people to short Hex, which is something we can talk about later. Like that's something that could really make the price run. Is if we gave haters the ability to borrow our Hex to short it, and then we squeeze them to the moon. Like, so a platform that like enables you to like make a market for margin trading of any ERC20. And so I'd asked like, when is this something that we can like make a market for, for any coin? And they'd said that they're delaying it because of some changes to the gas structure. So I do know it impacts a lot, but other than like nothing in particular do I know they're experiencing, this type of issue.
Really?
Yeah, but I imagine there are like there's got to like
there must be.
Yeah, I haven't looked at anything that.
No, I don't buy anything else but Hex on MetaMask anyway.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like and that's.
Is it I just like also this the way that I'm looking at it. Like I have a couple of stakes that were in that kind of, like they were around 10,000 Hex that were coming out in maybe like a month or two, and so I had it was kind of like, oh, should I end stake these and just eat that interest thing now before the April the 14th? But in the end, I decided not to. What I decided to do, well, I guess I still haven't completely decided, but what I think I will do is I'll still mint them, but I'll just use that as my new cost basis. So I'll just add whatever expense that was onto whatever expense it was at the start for me, and then I'll just either wait for the price to keep going up, and I'll just wait it out until it is profitable it will make those that Hex profitable, I think, or I'll just put it in with another stake and put it out quite long. And so, although you might kind of double your cost base of your Hex, I think that it still is probably worth it to mint it. And so that's just another tactic, or you can just like let it bleed out until you kind of feel that it is worth to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe there's some type. I mean, depending on where you live, maybe there's some type of way to save on taxes. By having this type of like baked-in loss, or
it's an expense. It's an expense you can claim. Absolutely, it's a gas cost. So all of those gas costs you can claim against your taxes. Yeah. So in a way, if you're earning enough money, it's kind of like the discount off the tax kind of like pays for it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I emergency end staked some just before, a couple of days before the 14th, around about 250,000 Hex in 2 transactions, and I think I had about probably a couple of $100 worth of interest. But I thought I'll just end stake because who knows what I'm in for. So I did, and it cost me for each transaction $25 US, which is pretty cheap.
Mhm.
And now I'm sort of thinking I did the right thing because I've been looking at like some of the pictures people been posting, and they're just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you did. I think we talked about that on Twitter. And so were those stakes from? Did they start before Big Payday?
No, it was just my liquid. I just staked
Got
out for a few months. I thought, oh, instead of having it sit there, I might as well just stake it out for a few months. So I ended up restaking it as well out for, what did I do? I think 6 months. Oh, no, I did 12 months. I think a year. Might as well be earning interest, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I did the right thing.
So did the interest that you earn exceed the gas that you paid?
Well, no, not when I emergency unstaked. But I lost all my interest anyway. But it probably would have today if I tried to, like, when it's due in a couple of weeks, it probably would, you know, if we're looking at the same sort of prices we're looking at today, it probably wouldn't have been worth it, wouldn't have been profitable. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had that, you know, I had that kind of tough decision. I have a stake ending here in a couple days. It was like one of the, like an early stake. And it's, you know, I don't think the get like it's beyond like the minimum threshold. Like my rule of thumb that just like from like rough calculation at like current prices, anything that's like under like 12 T shares, it's like you're better off just holding liquid. And so luckily that stake is greater than that threshold. So like it's going to eat into the just like the principal and the interest, you know, a good amount. You know, but I was there deciding like, okay, should I emergency end stake it? And I wasn't, you know, exactly sure how the, you know, and I kind of got cold feet. I wasn't exactly sure how the, like, because if I correctly that I would lose my big payday.
Yeah.
If I, and so I wasn't, I kept.
Yeah, different story because you can lose all of it. Is it 50% or is it 1 day short of the full period? You lose that whole bonus.
I thought it would be. I figured it would be all. Like I couldn't see a scenario with any of the big payday.
Better off. You're just better off waiting, I reckon.
Yeah. So I just held on to it, and so what my strategy with that is, and you know, is, you know, because it is going to be worth it to end stake. Like the hex is worth more than the gas that I'm expecting it to be. But I'm just going to kind of wait for a time when there's really low gas price, you know, and just try to time the end stake. And, you know, if I can, you know, because that's like the multiplier. There's like the gas cost, which, you know, like the stake, and Firebun shared in the developer chat kind of like a graph of, you know, like how much additional gas the stake costs every day. And then there's the gas price, which fluctuates based on the just how congested the network is. And so my goal is to just wait till it's really low price and just like eat the cost, and then maybe even like lose some to, like, you know, because every week you lose like 1%. And so even if I lose like 1 or 2%, if like gas price goes down about 1%, you know, like, so I'm not really in a rush to end it. And, you know, and that's just one of the stakes. So it's, you know, I'll try to optimize it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, like kind of like future strategy, I think that like kind of what I used to do is, like, you know, any new amount of hex that I would just like get or buy, I would just like tack it on to the end of like just max length stakes. So I do have some smaller max length stakes that are out there that I at this point I don't know if those would be feasible, because like the gas cost every day just at current prices. So prices would need to go a lot higher, but like, you know, the gas price every day I think is going to be greater than what that earns every day. You know, I don't know how the compounding will have an effect. Like that's still kind of it's too soon to tell. But I think now what I'm trying to do.
Anyway, we're going to go on Pulse, so you don't have to worry. Is this is 6 months away? For 6 months away.
I say triple that.
But that's the thing. Like, we might have a whole clone of what we've got now, right? But how expensive is gas going to be? But it's just all who knows, you know?
So I think that Pulse could take longer than we all think, because that's
sure.
serious undertaking. Because it's not just like with Hex, like it's a smart contract that runs on Ethereum. So it's like kind of like a plug and play thing. Like you launch the contract and it just runs. Whereas launching a full chain, it's like a whole different undertaking. Like where it's not only just writing the code. It's
So
like
before we jump into Pulse, because I've got a few questions about Pulse that I want to get into, but like there's still like some stuff with Hex that I want to tackle, and I want to move kind of from the micro and the gas and all that kind of thing to, let's assume that Hex does what it's been designed to do, that it keeps increasing in value and replicating compounded interest, and that causes everybody else to start jumping onto it, and it becomes incredibly successful. Like, is there a road to Hex ever being like a reserve currency of the world?
So there's kind of a couple different ways that I kind of think about this. On one hand, I actually don't think Hex needs to be a like reserve asset. Like that's got its own like type of risks and overheads and kind of like limitations. Like, and I think that Bitcoin is uniquely suited to be like kind of like a like global like monetary base, kind of like gold, like was until like 1934. And so I think that like Bitcoin, because it was like the first coin that succeeded with a fixed supply monetary policy. I think that, and because it's like the oldest one and it's like kind of, emerged as the leader in like the fixed supply like money use case. I think that like Bitcoin can kind of bear that burden of being like that global reserve asset. But on top of that, I think that like that's where like, other types of assets and financial products live. So like there's like gold, but then there's also like, the fixed income market, which is like a, hundreds of trillions of dollar industry. And I think that's kind of where Hex lives, where like Hex can be, like a major financial product and like a major investment product. And I think that actually has a higher upside.
So what's the fixed income market?
So like bonds, like certificates of deposit, so like, there's like a like other area of like global finance that I think Hex actually kind of like really fits into. Like gold, I think, or Bitcoin has kind of a like a distinct use case that's like pretty limited in scope. And but I think like the larger opportunities are in kind of like these like global financial products, and that I think like Hex really is, like it's like a leading candidate for, it's like a serious competitor to, like the global, like I'm gonna like how, like global bond market. Let's see how much that is. Like, that's a
like, I mean, look at the US dollar. Who wants to be like that? The US dollar's gone into the toilet. Like really.
So Bitcoin will be like $1. I think that like what I really see is that like nations are, will always issue their own like private notes. They could be done through blockchains, or they could like kind of tack on to existing current like cryptocurrencies. But like, but I think that like in order for nations to be competitive, they need to hold assets that can help them ensure that whatever currency that they like issue to like the people that live in that geographic area is strong. So I think Bitcoin is a strong reserve asset. But also like Hex, it fits in with that too, where, like you could add, like, I think I posted a tweet once about this where, like where Hex, I mean, even though like, I think Bitcoin like has its own like unique use case as like the fixed supply money, like Hex is like kind of a more dynamic asset where it like earns interest on holding it. And, it can like produce cash flows. Like, I think that can be like a whole other like type of way for a nation to organize. And for that to be used as like a way to kind of like power an economy, is to have it like kind of backed by Hex states.
That's what I was kind of like thinking. Like, if a country, let's say like Australia, wanted to take on the Hex model, it doesn't even necessarily need to be Hex. Like, because it's big enough and it's got a wide enough dispersion, it can easily like create its like Australia could, for instance, fork Ethereum and like call it, you know, Oz or whatever, and they could issue something similar to the Hex contract on that, and then see we have a thing called superannuation in Australia, which is your kind of, you call it 401k, and in Australia, like if you have a job, your employer has to pay into your retirement fund, your superannuation, and so like could a country like make that actually have to be into something like Hex, so that your employer has to buy in this Hex like asset, and therefore it will be locked out, and they could do something like lock it out for 50 years. Like if you're a young 18-year-old kid, or you know whatever, and you want to retire at 65, they could make it so that all of your stuff comes out, or maybe it doesn't come out all at once, but it comes out over between the ages of 65 to 90 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like do you think, can you see countries like taking on the Hex model and fiddling with it a bit to do it, because the mathematics is always going to be there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we've already seen competitors trying to, like, you know, kind of take some of the things that Hex has, you know, proven works and proven there's demand for. You know, like with just some of the knockoff hexes that we've seen, you know, kind of come out of the woodworks. And I mean, I don't think we hear much about them anymore, but, you know, like it definitely, Hex definitely proved that there's, you know, some like really effective monetary policy with, like, you know, the staking and the way that, you know, when your coins are locked, you can't unlock them. You know, when you have them locked, you're earning interest, and that comes from inflation. So it's just kind of like recirculating like the total supply. It's like, in a way, you kind of can think about Hex as a fixed supply thing, even though like the total supply, like the total number of units increases. Like there's still like 100% of the Hex, like all the Hex you can think about it just like a single pie. And then like the people that are staked, they're growing the pie. And then the people that are not staked, their pie is shrinking. And so like, you know, Hex really proved that model works, where, you know, the people that hold liquid Hex, they're paying the people that hold staked Hex. And they're paying them so that the people that have staked Hex promise that they're not going to front run them to try to sell and push the price down. So like you're earning money by guaranteeing that you're not going to be pushing the price down. And so like, you know, I think that that's a really powerful force. And just like the way that Hex is kind of like executed, it does fit like with what you said about the superannuation, or like the 401k, or like these like long-term retirement products where you buy into them, but then if you need to leave, there's a big penalty. You know, like, and so I think that like as a financial product, like Hex I think that's where Hex can really compete is, you know, maybe Hex, you know, like, you know, you could otherwise brand Hex. Like I know that the branding and like how Hex was like originally conceptualized and described was a blockchain certificate of deposit. But like in another world, you could have also just called Hex a blockchain 401k, where you know,
hey, good catch up. Where do you come from? Which part of America do you live in?
Oakland, California.
Oh, cool. So like Australia, how Blue Bum was just saying, with our employers, they have to pay, I think, a minimum of 9% annually into our superannuation. Do you have something similar over there?
Yeah, so like employers will contribute to your 401k, and so by law, I don't think they have to. So I work in a
deal. It depends on the employer and what they work out with their employees. So they have like, I think they have all sorts of different deals that like the employer says, we'll match your funding, or if with this job, and another job they won't match your funding, and so it's a competitive thing.
But it's law here, right? In Australia, workplace law, but in America, it's not. They just decide whether they do or they don't.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
really?
Some places do, but where like the employer will match into your retirement account.
You know, I was just thinking about it, like in terms of like the government's like borrowing now money, and they're kind of borrowing against the future, but there's no actual plan about how to pay it off in the future. Like they're just borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And so, but what Hex does is it also kind of borrows into the future by paying the inflation to stakers. But what it does is it says this is the plan. This is when the inflation is going to come out. So it's like you could really it is a kind of similar system in a way. It's just that Hex has a plan that everybody knows and can trust, whereas these other fiat currencies just don't have a plan at all. It's just yeah.
Exactly. Like Hex, it's like it doesn't matter. Like inflation, and this is something that Hex really, I think, like Hex really unlocked my mind to this concept where, like, originally, because early on, like I really loved only Bitcoin. Like I was like really only into Bitcoin, and what Hex really taught me is that like the fixed supply monetary policy, that's just one example of a monetary policy. And the thing that matters, like it doesn't matter what the supply is, it just matters that you can accurately predict what the supply is going to be. And so in Hex, you can calculate what the future market supply is going to be. And so it doesn't matter, and so growing at the 3.69% constant rate, like the fact that that's like public and you can verify it, like that's as good as the supply being fit. Because you know exactly who it's going to and who it's coming from. Whereas, like with the governments where they lend money into existence, you don't know at what rate that's going to happen. And then on top of that, like when there, anytime there's new money injected into the system, that enables more credit to be like applied to that money. So like there's the money supply inflation, and then there's the resulting credit expansion. And so that's what really can drive the prices up of assets and of even consumer goods. Is just like, okay, now they, injected all this new money, and now, the banks, they're lowering their reserve requirements. They can now lend out more money than what they have. So now there's just more money, and they're, they can lend out more money per unit that they have. And so it's just like, those two forces really, diminish people's purchasing power. Like forces you to take on more credit and forces you to take on more risk. And so like, I think that's like the really disruptive thing that I think like, Hex really could, like really power it, like a global economy, is that, it has a fixed, supply schedule. And then it's always being recirculated. And so it, I do think that, even though I don't think Hex needs to be, because I think that like being a reserve asset, it has its limitations. I think that, like Hex very well could serve as like a global, like reserve assets that nations may, collect as tax and use as a budget, and so something that I had proposed, I think in an old tweet, was that, like in the future, we see like all the current governments just go out of business because the only thing they can print more of is their own notes. And if the market suddenly demands other types of money like Hex more so than the market demands those, their currencies that they can produce, like they're just going to go out of business. And so like what's going to fill that void are going to be, other entities and other enterprises that fulfill that demand for like those types of like services that you look to a government to provide, like, physical protection, rule of law, infrastructure, all those things that people like demand from, that where the service provider is the government. Like if the government wasn't there, you'd still demand those things, and then someone would fulfill that need. So I think that like, just like the existence of cryptos is going to push governments into being more like private enterprises, where there's going to be a lot more turnover, where if like that group that's providing like the governmental services, if they stop providing the right service at the right price, they're going to go out of business, because like in that type of setting where like the government can't just like print more of it, they actually have to like operate a budget and be cash flow positive. And especially if they're dealing in like cryptocurrencies that you can't so easily seize from someone, they have like people have to voluntarily fund the government. And so, I think it really changes that dynamic where they're going to have to provide an even better level of service because, people just may not want to pay it. And so I think that, like Hex can actually be a good type of money for governments to run on, because maybe what they have is something where, if you want to be a citizen here and get access to the court system and have, be able to call 911 if something's going wrong, and you can use the water and the roads. You have to pay like a monthly subscription. Maybe what you pay into the you pay your tax. The government then rolls that on the end of a staking ladder, and so they just bundle up all the tax they collected that month, plop that onto the end, and then say every month or every quarter they have a big amount of stakes ending. Maybe as a tax refund, you get back half your principal, and then the government has the remaining half the principal and the interest, and that's their budget. And if they can't operate, then maybe they go out of business, or they have to figure out something else out. So I think that the interest earning component of Hex, that can really be a way to kind of fund governments, because yeah.
Do you think we'll see more serious copycat versions of Hex? I know there's the copycat versions which were just not really were just deficient in so many different ways. But do you think we'll see actual like people come up with different forms of Bitcoin, Litecoin and Dogecoin or whatever? Do you think people will come up with real alternatives to Hex that are based on the same mathematics?
100%. I think there will always be because Hex proved that that this type of monetary policy is successful, and it was it was a success story. I think there's always going to be coins launching that that have those types of qualities. Maybe not exactly the same, but yeah, I think that
yeah, I guess we'll see ones where you could stake for 50 years, and we'll see other ones where it's only a 5-year thing, and then people will play with the rates of how you can affect share rate and all sorts of stuff like that. Hey, there's so many.
If I was to launch a clone of Hex, I would make it so that the changes I would make it so that you can only make a max length stake, and the early end stake penalty is 100%. So I would get rid of the day 1 through 5554.
Yeah.
And I would get rid of the penalties would be 100%. That would be the only thing I'd change. So who knows, man?
The penalties 100%. That means no one is ever end staking. There's no. Yeah. That's I'm not sure about that. And if you can only do the max length, what you're saying, a max length of 15 years, people wouldn't be staking much though. They'll chuck $10 out and see what happens or something. You know what I mean? But
the people that do will earn even more interest, and because and that would just be and then all the game theory will kind of reorient.
How much demand will there be for that coin if you can only chuck it out 15 years?
Well, or you could just hold it liquid. You don't need to have it staked. But
hold it liquid.
I don't know. Maybe a good thing to kind of measure would be every day that goes on, if you just look at all the stakes that started that day, look at kind of a distribution of where they are, what percent are the max length, what percent are not, and maybe everything. So that's just the idea of potential
Yeah, I'm just curious. What you got a little smile when you said that you could do this. I'm just what attracts you so much to people only being able to do long stakes and having 100%
So it's all about scarcity, and this kind of lends into what we were talking about earlier with Pulse, where or with the EIP 2929, is that anything that makes it more scarce or makes the rewards more scarce, I think makes it more valuable. And so having it where the only option is to max length stake, it's now it's the average stake length will be 15 years, and so having just anything that supports scarcity, I think is good for price. And so that's kind of why in my perfect world, or just an idea that I had of what would make Hex even more scarce and even a more powerful long-term savings and long-term hoarding use case, was that if you didn't even have the option to stake for a short period of time, that's because I think that scarcity is like the big innovation in cryptocurrencies, and you're seeing it with like this like NFT digital collectible hysteria, like it's really about scarcity. Like scarcity, like I think like scarcity has always been valuable. Like all resources have always been scarce, and the humans that have been able to like capture and maintain the scarce resources, they're the ones that are able to like continue on. And so like scarcity, like because we live in like a finite world, like that's like kind of baked into our DNA. And so I think that like scarcity in like monetary policy is like a good thing, because like if and yeah, so that's I think it just kind of links up to scarcity.
This is a really good segue into talking about Pulse. So, like we know a few little things about Pulse. We don't know, nothing is obviously set in concrete, and like it's still going to be another, well, less than a couple of weeks until he announces some more of what it's all about. But he has been dropping quite a few little nuggets in the Pulse chat, and what one thing about Pulse that I'm a bit confused about is like he's stated that it's going to be fee burning. And so that means to me that it's a proof of stake coin. And so if it is a proof of stake coin which has validators and it's also going to have delegated proof of stake, so that me as a small person, I can't run a full, like I think he listed what the hardware requirements would kind of be, and it would be around like 12 terabytes of RAM or something like that. And I was just like, does that even exist? 12 terabytes of RAM? And so it's like, it's the validators, and it might only be 21 as well. I think that's what he seems to be, because he's obviously seen other chains that have worked with that. So if it's a very small amount of validators, so you're going to be able to delegate your Pulse to that. So if it is fee burning, that means that it's going to have to be inflation that pays for any interest. Is that the only thing that can pay for? Is that the only thing? Like, if it's not fees that are paying for the staking interest, it has to be inflation. Or is there any other kind of possible way?
Well, so I guess those are kind of two different things. So like the interest on like whatever version of Hex is running on Pulse, like that's like separate.
No. We're just talking about Pulse. Just talking about Pulse. The Pulse is going to be. Let's say this: Pulse is going to be a delegated proof of stake, so you'll be able to stake it and earn interest. We don't know what amount. Let's say that interest is 10% per annum. Mm-hmm. We have no idea though, right? So that money, that 10% per annum, it can't come from fees, because he's stated that it's going to be the fees are going to be burnt. So the only thing that the only place that money can come from is inflation of the coin. Like it's got to come from somewhere. Yeah, does that make sense?
That's probably how it'll be. I'm still not sure about like exactly what the economics of like where the supply is going to come from. At what rate. Like I think it's too early to tell what that
is there any other possibility? Like if it is going to be fee burning, it has to be inflation that pays for those staking rewards. And so
yeah, probably. Or maybe like I guess another solution would be that if the fee exceeds some threshold, then anything past like some limit is burnt.
Okay, so it's not burning; it's fee singeing.
It's like
partly part of the fees is burnt, but part of the fees get paid to the stakers. I guess that's what it also could be, and then also, I guess it would be partially inflation, partially fees. I guess we'll find out in the not too distant future what is decided. So, but just knowing that, like that, you've got do you see that there's a tension there? Like you're wanting the value of Pulse to go up by burning the fees. That lessens the amount of Pulse, but you have to pay the stakers something, so you'll have kind of some sort of inflationary thing, and that kind of keeps the price more stable, I guess. And so my question is, I guess, like, do you see Pulse and Hex competing in any way? Like for me, Hex is the apex predator. Like if I'm an investor and I see these two things, it's like Hex just eats it all up. Like Hex is just it's the best designed thing and it's working and it's functioning and it's like I can't see how you can improve on the staking. And so I'm just wondering how like he gets enough rewards into the staking and the price appreciation. And if you have your, let's say, like how much do you invest into Pulse compared to Hex? Do you go 80% Hex and 20% Pulse if you really believe in Pulse, or how do you see all of that?
Yeah. So, like, kind of the way that I'm like at this time, kind of how I understand it is that, there's always going to be ETH, there's always going to be Hex that's on ETH, and then there's going to be Pulse, and then there's going to be a version of Hex that's on Pulse. And so they're really now like four assets that you have to like, as an investor, like measure kind of like where you're going to put your assets. And when you asked earlier if we think that we're going to see a like any like competitors or like any future like copycats of Hex, Pulse, like the Hex that runs on Pulse, that's technically like a copycat competitor. And so even though everyone, like you'll have your Hex on the Ethereum chain, and then if Pulse launches, which I don't know enough about like how the Pulse supply and like how the validating is going to work. So I really don't like that's your guess as good as mine on that topic with like the fee burning and like how the validation is going to work. But like as far as like the Hex that runs on the Pulse, like what that is it's it's going to be it's going to operate similarly, and so
I think there'll be a fundamental difference though, because the whole idea is to slash the fee, is like to have much smaller fees. So I think on the Hex Pulse, you're going to have a lot more shorter stakes, because if I've got a bunch of Hex and I'm like, I'm probably not going to do anything for the next month, but I want to still have it a bit liquid. I'll chuck it out for a month. Now I'm not going to do that on ETH, because it's just the fees are going to eat up any kind of profits at the level that I'm playing at. But I think I think you're going to see a lot more stakes and a lot more shorter length stakes on Pulse is my guess.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like if the Hex, like just like Hex not as like a coin or as a contract, like Hex as an idea or Hex as a brand, like if you like copying Hex on Ethereum straight over to Hex on Pulse, it doubles the supply, but since that doubling of the supply is applied equally to everybody, it's like as if it didn't happen to anybody. Like there was a coin that I it's one of my old videos with like when I was doing those like group live streams, a coin that we made a killing on was something called Flow, which is it was where every day your balance went up, where you'd earn interest, but everyone was earning the same amount. So it was like nobody was earning it, but like people were like real into that, and it pumped and then it dumped forever. But like, so like that kind of opened my mind to like if everyone is getting the same thing, it's as if no one is getting it. And that's why Big Payday was powerful, because not everyone got the same thing. Like the max link stakers like doubled their amount. The minimum link stakers, they got like 28% or whatever it was. And so like, so like adding this like just like doubling like the Hex, where you have your Hex on Ethereum and now you have the same amount, like exact system state, like the total supply on that day will increase by 100%. But then from there, like as those two like together as like Hex, like the brand, that's still like every day, the 3.69% inflation on the Hex Ethereum plus the 3.69% inflation on the Pulse Hex, like together, when you add that together, like the whole unit is still growing at 3.69%. So like in theory, the value would be like kind of split equally, but I don't think that's how it's going to permanently be, because now you have like two options, like if you have liquid Hex and then now you have your Pulse Hex, you have a business decision to make. Like, do you think that over time the value of the Hex on Ethereum is going to be worth more than the value of the new Pulse that you got? And so that's going to be the big question to ask, is like, okay, where is the market going to go? Like, will will like the demand for those like, like the low cost fees for the short term staking, is that going to drive enough demand to like flip in like the
Well,
main hex?
it's going to be the new coiners. It's
Mhm.
going to be anybody entering the system now, because it's just too prohibitively expensive to be a small player on the entering ETH now. You just get eaten up in fees. So I think that a lot of the new coiners coming in, when they're faced with pay lots of fees on ETH or pay barely anything on Pulse, they're
Mhm.
just going to go for Pulse, I think. So I think a lot of that new demand is going to come from that, because at the moment, like people who, and like last week I interviewed a guy, Hex Zaga from Kenya, and he
Mhm.
was telling me about, like, there was like street vendors in Kenya who were hexicans, you know what I mean, and they earn very little money, but when the ETH transaction prices were low, they could get in and be involved. Now now if they're coming in new, they're cut out, because it's just way too expensive for them to to use Ethereum. So
Mhm.
I think Pulse will be like the whole of Africa. Like it'll be really driven by a whole lot of new people coming in.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that can kind of be the use case of it, is for like this kind of like smaller retail transactions where, like, because if you only have, like a couple $100, you know the the risk of being on a new like untested chain, like the thing that Ethereum will always have over Pulse is that it's, like, say, Pulse launches, say, next year. At that time, Ethereum will be what, like 8 years old, 7 years old. So like Ethereum will always be older. So we'll always have a longer track record. And so I think that like it's going to be difficult to onboard the like massive pools of capital onto the Pulse one. But I think for like the consumer level, like people joining Hex as like a brand, I think that's ideally what I want to see, is that like that they kind of work together. Where I do think that the Hex on Ethereum is going to be worth more than the Hex on Pulse, because it's like there are a couple reasons. One, just like, if you're like the people that have really driven the price of Hex are the people with like the Genesis whale who bought like however many $1 million worth of Hex, like doubled the price, and they that really kind of catapulted Hex. Like that mega whale the other day that bought a big batch and then staked for 15 years and like led to that, like the price one that we're kind of in the middle of now. So like those like massive pools of capital that are like already on Ethereum, like they're the ones that really push the price up in a big way. Whereas like the smaller like incremental purchases, like in smaller quantities, they don't necessarily push the price up in that fashion. And so I think that like, the people that have the biggest impact on price, they're not really affected by the fees. And so I think that like the big like institutional onboarding effects, which I think that like that's kind of like the net like kind of the net like the next step in Hex's maturity, is like the financialization of Hex, where Hex kind of goes from like an obscure cryptocurrency to like, part of like major financial products. And it's like, kind of where like Bitcoin now is kind of, like major hedge funds, major like institutions are like buying Bitcoin because it's like at that maturity level where it's suitable for their risk profile. So I think what kind of takes Hex there, like that's like a big next step in the development. And I still think that those pools of capital are going to be more likely to be onboarded to Hex as like the economy through Ethereum. And then, but then, because, like, and then like the thing that kind of bridges them together are, like, and I think this is what on Richard's stream, something I'd asked him about what the risks are of launching a new chain. And I asked him about, so not just technical and like security risks, but like kind of like the market risks. And So he sounded confident in there being like really strong like bridges, but bridge between like Ethereum and Pulse, and then even if there's like a bridge between between Hex and Pulse Hex, like that market there, like and maybe that's like a whole other like revenue stream for to provide liquidity there, and so like that.
From what I've gathered of being in the Pulse chat, he's probably going to fork the whole of the Ethereum chain over. That means that every single ERC20, whether Link and Synthetics and Aave and the whole kit and caboodle, including Uniswap and including the Uniswap pools. So everything's going to be copied. Save. I saw one message where he said he might snip a couple of them out. And my guess is that's probably the Hex copycats, which he doesn't want over there, maybe. But like pretty much the whole kit and caboodle is coming. And so all of a sudden, all of these Ethereum people who have all of these ERC20s suddenly have a version on Pulse. And so along with that, all of the like the liquidity pools. So, for instance, the Uniswap will come over as well. So you'll have, and what you'll be able to do is wrap the Hex on Ethereum and bring it over to the Pulse chain, and so you'll get a market discovery there. But you'll also get on the Ethereum chain, you'll get the Hex Pulse being wrapped and brought over to Ethereum. So you'll get a market discovery there. So you'll have two separate market discovery things. So these bridges are not in the middle. There'll be two bridges on each side.
One that way and one.
And that's for everything. That's for every single kind of like ERC20. So it's just like, it's going to be chaos at the start.
It's definitely going to run.
People try to get their heads around what things are worth. And and because like certain pools will people will just try to sell it all and they'll just dump. But all of a sudden, that could be an incredibly good opportunity. And then you might be able to wrap it and bring it over to Ethereum and then trade it on there and get your money, and increase your money that way. There's going to be all sorts of crazy games going on.
Hey, Dispatcher. Sorry, Blue Bum. So, with the Berlin upgrade, and of course with Ethereum, they've got the 2.0 version out. It's coming out. Will that wouldn't they be looking to lower gas fees with bringing the 2.0 out? Or there's some update in, I think, June or July also, which is supposed to bring fees down. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I actually think that this issue with the extraordinarily high fees, I actually think it could be a temporary thing. The issue that we're facing now, where the gas cost now increased by 2.5x. But if all these new changes and also just use cases moving off of the layer 1 to layer 2, if you look at on the Etherscan gas tracker, there's the main gas consumers are the exchanges and the stable coins. So if all the exchanges and the stable coins moved off of layer 1, and the exchanges specifically are those are ones that really push the price up because those are time sensitive transactions. So people are willing to bid the price of gas up because if you're a bot that's trading the price difference on, Uniswap versus one of these other markets, you're trying to get your transaction there first. And so they're really pushing the gas price up. So if those types of applications, move off of layer 1 and with Ethereum 2 and just future upgrades, if those bring down fees or move things elsewhere, that could entirely solve the problem. And even though over the last couple months, and then I think in the next couple months to years, we're going to be experiencing really high fees, the fee issue that's kind of motivating all of this, it could just be eliminated. And then there could just be a window of time, and that'll just be part of Hex's history where, there was a time where a lot of people, their small stakes got permanently locked, and we just kind of had to move through that. And, it's just, so I think that this problem could actually resolve itself, outside of like any fork or new chain to run on. And so, you also don't know when that is. And like, I think this is like an important kind of like thing that I think that like would be good for people to kind of like really kind of go back to like their Hexagon roots and having no expectation of benefit from anyone's work, like expecting like Ethereum developers to like serve you. Like you really can't like what they don't owe any of us anything. Like they're not our employees. They did not tell us that, and like even like the gas fee that you're paying, like it's not going to Vitalik. Like Vitalik's not getting that money. Like the ETH miners are getting the money. And so like, they're not beholden to you, to you or me or anybody. And so like, I think that like, that no expectations of profit from the work of others, I think extends beyond just Hex, and just like that should apply to like your general approach. Like if you're working in these like, on these like public blockchain networks, just any, like as the individual end user, like you really don't have a say. And like, there's all these risks, like, there's all these risks involved. And so, like, you can't guarantee that any work that Vitalik is going to do is going to like resolve this gas fee issue for us. But what it looks like, I think that, this problem may be solved. I don't know what time frame that can be, and I don't expect anyone to do that, but I think that's like a real possibility that a solution where we don't even really need to solve it. We just might have to like, bear with it for a little bit, and then change our strategy. Just, that's just now part of the game theory. And then, maybe, there like solutions emerge that, we didn't really have to do anything for.
Hey, I just want to also point out, like VinRx like mentioned about the stable coins, and Richard has actually commented on that in the Pulse chat. So the weird thing is that these USD stable coins, they're going to be copied over as well, like they're ERC20 coins, but there's going to be price discovery for them. So these ERC, like the USDC and stuff, it's going to all be replicated on Pulse Chain, but it's going to have to go through a price discovery. So you might be able to, I mean, and yes, USDC can just go and turn them all off because they control all of the keys to all of their coins. Like it's a censored coin, USDC, or a censor possible coin or whatever. But more than likely, they will probably not act, because if they do something, they're more legally liable than if they don't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the stable coins, like you can issue, like just have a copy of those, but you can't copy the bank account that Coinbase holds to like whatever, they claim to be full reserve. I don't really have any reason to believe there's not full reserves. You can't copy that. Like you can't copy Coinbase's bank account that backs USDC. And so like USDC that lives somewhere else, like, I think the stable coins that like, if there's like everything was copied over, I don't know how the stable coins will fare, because like they'll lose the peg, because there's not going to be a Pulse bank account for them. So that'll be, and even outside of like, the like NFTs, like now there's two of them.
NFTs, bang, you've got a Pulse version of it as well. Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to play out. Something that I actually suggested in the chat. No one maybe someone responded, but I didn't see any reply to me. I had suggested that you copy everything from ERC, so all ERC20s, and there's a limited time claim window where if you had the keys to whatever coin, you can go and claim it. But if you didn't do that in the first year, they go up for auction. So you have, so like then they enter kind of like an adoption amplifier type of auction where you have to buy Pulse in order to bid on them. So that to me, this was a solution to increase the price of Pulse, was to have all these assets just available. And if you want to claim it, you can claim it. But the people that just like don't claim it, whether they don't know about it or they don't like Richard or they don't want anything to do with it, then their coins that they could have claimed become available for sale, and then someone else. So like maybe, you own the NFT.
Possible. And I think that's I don't think that's possible. I think that what happens is that the whole thing gets copied, and as soon as you clicked in the MetaMask onto the Pulse network and you go onto the Pulse network, everything is just there. And that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's like immediately possible, but like imagine that.
But it's also really important for people who set and forget. Like there are people who just bought Hex, for instance, and like chucked it out 10, 12, whatever years and have forgotten about it. And if they come back in 10 years' time and realize they could have got the Pulse, which is now worth 10 times more than the Ethereum one was, like you can't do that to people. Like it's got to always...
Like with like the Bitcoin free claim, like, a lot of Bitcoiners didn't get their Hex.
That was about them signing a transaction to free claim something.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fork, so that everything just gets copied straight over. So as soon as it's copied, it's all there on the network.
Mm-hmm.
So all you have to do is change your MetaMask drop down from Ethereum to Pulse network, and because it's your keys that control it. So I don't see how you can.
Yeah, I mean, like my idea would definitely require a whole, like how do you make it so that something's available and then it's now suddenly like can be transferable? Like, who knows how you can do, but like the whole, I guess the concept that I was trying to introduce that, like in order for like the Pulse coin to be like successful, it needs people to be buying it for some reason, and maybe like that would be a way to drive demand, would be that like in order to like claim your claim the coins that you have copied over to Pulse, you have to buy it, or like there's like an auction like where you missed the free claim but you still want your coins, you have to like now buy them. So like I was more thinking of like what is going to make people buy the Pulse coin, because like if the Pulse coin has no value, then why would the validators be trying to why would they be trying to earn it? And so like that's the thing that like Pulse, in order for like a Hex clone to work on Pulse to work, the Pulse needs to be independently valuable as well. And so like I think there needs to be some serious pumpamentals built in that's going to like help bootstrap the market for Pulse. Because if like there's no demand for that unit, then like the blockchain is just not going to work.
Hey, guys, sorry to butt in. David Fetter just commented, everything's dumping. The whole market's dumping. Hex is like on a big summer blowout. It's down to 156 if you want to get some.
Oh, there we go. Let's see I wonder if the dip catcher algorithm is, let me see.
Bitcoin and Ethereum just dumped out hard.
Oh, really?
Have a look.
Yeah, okay. So
It's all
I'll go to
dumping.
next. So Bitcoin, Bitcoin's at 57,000, Ethereum's at 2180, and Hex is at 1.65. So it's dumped a little. It's dipped. I wouldn't call it dumped. Everything's dipped a bit, huh?
Yeah, and so it's definitely like on the if you go to dipcatcher.com, in my email alerts for Hex, the algorithm is probably going to start signaling buy literally like at the end of this 6-hour candle. I can tell on the chart here that literally it's going to start signaling buy. So it hasn't signaled like on the daily chart. It's still above, like way above the moving average line that kind of helps guide that algorithm. But yeah, I mean that's when the money's made. You make money when you buy. You don't make money when you sell. You make money when you buy. And so that's and that's kind of like the ethos of the dip. Like people are always like, aren't you worried the prices are going to go down? And I'm like, my whole brand is about the price going down. Like dip catcher is like literally like about the price going down. And So, I'm feeling pretty good. And, that's, and that's why, like, something else that I really try to encourage people in like, in my streams is that, like, you know, these markets, like, they always provide new opportunities to buy low. Like, there's always sell-offs. Like, it's like a seasonal thing. Like, because people that have the hex, like, they can sell, and that pushes the price down. And so, like, it's always good to have sources of income that are outside of crypto entirely, so that, like, when the price dips down, you at least have the option to buy more. And so, like, I feel much better when the prices go down than I feel when the prices go up. It used to be different. Like, when I was first getting into crypto, I would get, like, real upset. And this is when I was, like, relying on, that simple, because that was how I was paying for my startup. And like literally, like, I was like, I couldn't sleep when, like, just thinking, what's the price going to be when I wake up? Because I was, needing to urgently spend it. Like, if you're actively spending it, you really worry about the price. But, like, now that, like, I'm, just in a situation where, like, I really have no intentions of even really, like, experiencing a big lifestyle change from crypto gains. Like, to me, like, the crypto, it's not for me, it's for, like, my descendants. Like, this is like a legacy thing. Like, it's not so much to, like, increase my lifestyle or quality of life. Like, if I want to increase my quality of life, I'll just, like, work hard and try to get a raise, or try to get, new source of income, start a business, do things to, like, increase income. Like, that's how I'll try to, increase my life quality. Like, the crypto thing, like, this is, like, and this is why I align so much with Hex, is because it's like a long-term, like, generational thing. Like, and so I personally feel a lot better when the price goes down than when the price goes up, because when the price goes up, I'm just getting a worse price. When the price goes down, you can sit through it. Like, if you have stakes out there, like, what does it matter what the price is today? Like, it truly doesn't matter. And so I celebrate the dips in the price, that, hence the dip catcher, website. And, just kind of, like, that's my general approach to all this.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like, don't really. I just kind of look at it in the long term, and I just think, yeah, it's cool. I'm collecting interest. It's going to go down. It's going to go back up. And, like, just stick around, and as long as you're earning interest, it's, like, cool. Like, and you need.
And also, kind of along the lines of, like, kind of like the trading of Hex. I know that's something that's, like, traditionally been kind of, like, not part of, like, the Hex, like, ethos and the Hex culture. It's, like, kind of been, like, you're stupid for trading. But now that there's this, we're, like, the, like, the increase of the gas costs from EIP 2929, now it actually makes the prospect of trading Hex as a way to earn more Hex.
You're right.
Makes it a little bit more desirable, because, like, if you say, you want to stake for a year, but, like, you really can't afford to stake for a year. And I think right now you'll probably earn, like, 20% on a year stake. So, you could either get a 20%, like, guaranteed ROI just by staking, but then you have to, factor in the cost of the gas. Or you could, like, the price moves 20% in a day sometimes. And so, like, there's opportunities to get that same ROI, but not just from staking. And I think that, like, if we, like, if this results in more people being liquid, and then more people trading, trying to get more Hex, not from staking because you have to pay the gas, but instead trying to get more Hex by placing limit buys and then limit sells, to where you're effectively paying almost no gas at all, because the market order pays the gas. You like, that's, like, a totally viable alternative to to staking, and that's actually good for the staker class, because whenever there's more trading, that'll mean more volatility. Like, people that are, like, selling low, that, like, pushes the price really low for, like, a short period of time, and then people that are, like, buying high, like, that pushes the price up. Like, as a staker, you want the opportunity to buy really low, and so, and then, when your stake is over, you want the opportunity to sell really high. And so, having a lot of traders and, like, extra volatility baked in I think it even further strengthens that use case of like the long-term save, because like, having that opportunity to buy low, times, because like if you buy low, you get more hex, you can get more T-shares. And so, like having like that, like, amplified volatility, because like those people that would have staked are now just like their only option is to trade. I think that actually is really healthy for, for the hex economy. Just that volatility.
It'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because you would imagine that there'll be a lot more trading on Pulse Hex because it doesn't cost you to trade in and out of it.
Sure.
Like I know when I was on QuickSwap, like I just didn't even think twice about moving stuff around, because it was like, but on Ethereum, like I'm barely like I will only make a transaction if I absolutely have to, and I'll like save up to.
Times are tough, Blue Bum. Times are tough, mate.
Say that again.
Times are tough.
Times are totally tough on Ethereum. Yeah, but on Pulse, like I can imagine there'll be loads more, probably volatility as well. Like if there's a lot more trading and people are not paying or very little for transactions as a trade, they'll probably, and a lot more shorter stakes and stuff like that. It'll probably be a way more choppier, which plays out to the staker class in the long run, doesn't it?
Yeah, because if there's more volatility, it makes it more attractive to trade. If there's more people that want to have the opportunity to trade, they're not staking. If they're not staking, they're not competing for the inflation pool. And so, like, because they're like the opportunity to make that like 20 or like 40% gain per year, like you could get that just by trading. And so like more volatility, like I think that like getting more people trading is actually that's like a big strength, because like, the staking, I mean, and I still like, I try not to like imagine too much about what Pulse is going to be like. Like I'll really start like mentally preparing for Pulse when there's a test net, like when it really materializes.
When you know the parameters, you know the rules, and then you can start with the game theory. Is that it's
too much. It's too hard to like really predict. Because you don't know, and who is like realistically, like the fee problem could be solved, and or what if another idea I had was, what if we launch Pulse, but to move everyone else off of Ethereum, and then we just stay on Ethereum, and then the fees are down, and like like that's another like, or whether it's Pulse or something else that drives people off of it, which like there's a lot of different ways to solve a fee problem. And I think that like, and this is kind of what I was suggesting in that chat. I was even suggesting to, because like a fork of Ethereum is actually like a big opportunity. I think that's why people are also excited about it, because like Richard has a track record of success. And so anything that he's going to be working on has a chance of like really going up in price. And so like, like from the like problem of like trying to salvage the stakes that are suddenly priced out. Like I do think there's big opportunity in disrupting Ethereum, like an ETH fork to like take some of the DeFi use case off of Ethereum, like just separate from the whole like prospect of trying to salvage stakes. Like that's a big opportunity. And like, that could be its own thing entirely that could be massively successful. And, maybe the, because I truly don't think that the like people's stakes that are expiring right now that they can unstake, and Pulse is not, it's not anytime soon. Like I don't think that those people can expect to have their, to be made whole from a new thing. Like it's like, especially, kind of as like the scope creep continues, because like I think when I first heard of Pulse, I thought it was like a chain specific for staking hex. And then it kind of grew to like, okay, we're going to fork Ethereum. It's going to be fee burning. And now just this morning when I woke up and I read like, okay, we're going to clone everything on ERC20. And like, it's kind of grown in scope. And so that'll just like, increase the time to to when it's like actually, available. And so, like I don't think that like people definitely, I hope that people don't get their hopes up that the Pulse is going to somehow salvage their like the stakes ending in like the next 2 or 3 years. Like I don't think that's, I don't think that that's really reasonable. And so, but like even just separate from like that, like an ETH fork is a massive opportunity. And so like, it like, I think that like, there's a lot of different ways that Pulse can be approached. And it's really kind of like, at this point, it's really, it's definitely like Richard's initiative. And, I have no expectation of him to, take my, opinions or really any, and what I really appreciate is he's very open about like, engaging in public about these things, like asking for suggestions and help, but like,
did you, he's asking for feedback and I'm a dev, yeah. So you put your ideas like that you've discussed today to Richard. I mean, I'm sure he would appreciate it. Yeah.
So he kind of, I suggested that we should fork Ethereum and make it a completely separate, like not even try to address, like curing the problem with hex fees. I was like, let's just fork ETH and just like not even worry about porting hex over, like, cause that like, if you're just rolling at an ETH fork, like just that alone can probably be something that can like be feasibly done quickly. But to roll out the ETH fork and then as part of that include like a snapshot of the hex state and like, making all the decisions related to that to like, support it and like building all the infrastructure to like, bridge the, the hex on ETH to the hex on Pulse, like it just adds all these other layers that just like delays it. So I was suggesting that we just fork ETH and not even like just kind of treat them as two separate problems. There's the fee problem, which is really just solved by price going up. Like price of hex going up solves everything, and then like other things will be solved by other people. Like other projects can move to layer 2. What's unique about hex, like it's harder to move hex to layer 2 because of the time lock. Like when you're staked, you're staked. And like, even if like hex was to move to a layer 2, where you'd have a layer 2, like, like the hex that is still living over in ERC20 land is still there. And so like that was my suggestion and he kind of laughed at it and didn't he didn't think that was a good idea. And then the other idea that I gave was to clone all the ERC20s, make it a limited time claim window, and then somehow once the limited time claim window of like the owner of those private keys, like once that window's done, every asset on Ethereum is now up for auction and you have to buy with Pulse. And this was like a way, like I suggested it as a way to pump the price of Pulse and to like kind of like a lot of the early messaging around when Hex was launching was about like, we're getting rid of the old whales and minting new whales. Like that was why like, there was like the silly whale penalty in the adoption amplifier and like the Mt. Gox coins were excluded and like, and so like that kind of ethos was like, okay, we're not just giving the people that have a lot even more, like we're kind of penalizing that. And so I thought that kind of fit in with the ethos of like, minting new whales where like, okay, like there's all these other DeFi ecosystems with like massive whales. And, if they don't come and claim their stuff for free, like that's free game. And then like a whole new kind of like parallel economy can take place over here where people who like the Hexicans who are plugged in can, kind of benefit from that. So those are the two ideas that I'd suggested in there. I think that my first idea is more feasible. Like that was me like with my, cause like I work as a software developer at a small legal tech startup. So like we're a team of about 11 people. And we service like tens of thousands of customers. Like we work with like all the like every big company you've heard of, like we work with them. And like we have such a small team and, we're doing like a really big like legal task. And so we're all like, and so I lead product development and like, like a core tenet of like everything that I do, like for my like day job is like, okay, what can we get rid of? Like what things can we just like forget about? How can we like reframe these problems so that like, you know, we can take big tasks and like break them up into smaller things and like throw out the things that, you know, don't matter. Like what can we accomplish first? Like what's like the next like immediate step we can take? And so that was my first idea of like just like treating them as two separate problems where like there's the small gas, the small stakes being priced out is like its own problem. And then there's, you know, the ETH fork, which is like a whole other opportunity, like treat those separate. Like that was like my more like real, like serious suggestion that's kind of rooted in like how like, you know, me as like, you know, I'm the only software developer at that's legal tech startup. And so like with like constrained resources, you know, I mean, even though Richard does not have constrained resources, but still, I mean, it's hard to find good developers who can like execute on this stuff. But like with like a small group of people, like with like a small effort, like how can you move a mountain in a big way? And so that was what I was trying to kind of get at, was to try to like break them up into different types of, you know, just make the problems a little bit simpler to tackle, because it's like this is not easy.
No, it doesn't look easy, and I'm sure even, you know, for Richard and all the devs, going to be a lot of work and a lot of time. And, you know, but I reckon we'll get something good. I mean, Richard won't let us down. How's your Fosters going, mate? All right.
Yeah, I'm like, I barely had it. I need to hurry up on that.
Nice. That's really
cool. You know, I think he can do it. And, you know, because, I mean, he's got a strong track record, and, you know, he's got the, like, with him, like he's definitely financially motivated, but I think more so than that, I think that this is why I think he's attracted such, you know, like a following, and like he's built such strong rapport with people, is that you can tell he's really motivated. Like he's got something to prove. And like, you know, you know, if you have all the money in the world, like, you know, if like more money, like more money, you know, probably isn't going to change life. And I think that's why a lot of people like are like, they've been following along with Richard since before Hex and to now. It's like, you know, like he's mega wealthy, you know, more wealthy than he's ever been. And he's still sitting in that same chair he sat in for years, still on YouTube YouTube live, like marathon live streams. He's on Telegram, just like answering like questions, like interact, like, and so it doesn't appear his lifestyle has changed. And so like, you know, for people in that type of situation, you know, like, I don't think like the financial motivation is the thing. I think it's like the kind of glory and like the power and like the proof.
He wants to look after his people, you know, like he really cares about the Hexagon community, and he's doing it for us because he knows we're dying of these expensive gas fees, you know. But yeah, I would say he's got quite a decent amount of money. But he said himself, money's nothing to him. I mean, people with a lot of money don't really, you know, care too much about money. But, you know, Richard's always been like that. He's so active in the community, and he's a really friendly guy. He'll answer your questions, and, you know, he's just seems like a really great person. You know, we've got him on Ladies Discourse as well on April the 30th. So that'll be fun. He's coming on with all the girls.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be.
I've really enjoyed kind of seeing his you know, progression through, you know, because I've been following a lot. Like I'll have to look at when I joined his Telegram chats. It was before Hex, and you know, I'd been, you know, subscribed to his YouTube for, you know, years before Hex, and it's really been cool to kind of see his like evolution. You know, like, you know, because early on, like, you know, I was kind of learning about like, you know, like some of his early videos I remember watching were about like when he would talk about like, you know, like in Bitcoin, when there was that issue of like the big blocks versus the small blocks, and like, you know, he was getting on and debating like the people like Roger Ver and like the BSV people, and like, he was like engaging in those topics. And it's pretty interesting to like think back, like that's how I was introduced to Richard, was kind of around that content. And this thing with like the whole like the Pulse Hex and the Hex, or the Hex ETH, is that it's kind of like it's a similar thing, because when Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, when that fork was going on, it's driven by the same thing, where like the use case of like daily transactions was getting priced out. and we're like, and so we might see that, and that is something that I am kind of worried like about, is that like the say Pulse launches, and then there's now everyone has their hex on ETH and their hex on Pulse. Like the people that can't afford to end the stakes, it's like a two-way street. Like you can, if you have enough ETH to be able to end your stakes, and you also have the hex on Pulse, like you can go from, like, you can sell your Pulse for hex, and you can also sell your hex for Pulse, so you can like push the price down in either direction. Whereas the people whose hex is permanently locked, they can't push the price down of hex. They can only push the price down of Pulse. So I think that like just that like underlying force, like really like it pushes in the favor of like the ETH hex to being, just kind of like, just like there's going to be more downwards price pressure on Pulse, because not everyone can push down the price of hex, but everyone can push down the price of Pulse hex. So like that's something I think is going to be tough to solve, because because I mean like what happened with like Bitcoin Cash and and Bitcoin. I mean, the Bitcoin Cash is down like 90% to what it was, and so the people that chose.
Yeah, but it's a very different. That's just the consensus, and because Richard has so many hexagons on his side, I don't see them selling down either Ethereum hex or Pulse hex. I see them just holding and waiting it out, earning interest. So many hexagons on his side.
Yeah, I mean, because there's really.
I don't see them selling down either Ethereum hex or Pulse hex. I see them just holding and waiting it out, earning interest.
Yeah, there's, like there's really strong social consensus. Like that's the key difference here. Like compared to like the Bitcoin Cash thing, is like that was like a internal strife within the community, where like, and it was like a big that was like a big monetary policy decision, like where like Bitcoin Cash, they were trying to increase the transaction throughput, but they were sacrificing the centralization of the miners or the validators. So it was suddenly going to become more expensive to validate the work the miners do. So there were going to be like just less eyes on the work that the miners do. So it sacrificed that in exchange for more throughput. And so that was like a big monetary policy decision. Whereas in this case, it's not like a monetary policy decision within Hex. It's like a solution to a problem. So like it's not like this is like a contentious thing where like some group of people are like wanting it and other people are not. It's like everyone's like generally like in line with it, and like it's not like anyone really has a choice. And so I think that like the social consensus in this setting is pretty strong, because like there's really nothing to lose, like, and so I think that makes the stakes a little bit lower than like the Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Fork, but I mean, still, like, I think that, like, it's something where, like, you can't really lose anything. So, like, there's not going to be, like, major losses experienced, because, like, if Pulse goes up a lot, then, or the Pulse Hex goes up a lot, then, like, everyone got it, and that's good. If the Hex goes up.
Get it? Catch it? Are we going to get it?
I mean, if it happens, so like, just like that seemed to be the only thing that was like guaranteed, was that that there was going to be like the only parameter that I think Richard like has said that he's like certain of is that the Hex system state is going to be ported over, like copied directly to Pulse. So I think that like if Pulse really comes to fruition, that there is going to be the Hex over there. And like
airdrop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'd be an airdrop, but like kind of the same effect as an airdrop, where like you suddenly have the coins on another chain. So yeah, like it could be kind of like an airdrop.
Yeah, so like free Pulse, right? Yeah.
We don't know how he's been toying with like how to give out Pulse, and one thing he's been thinking about is whatever ETH you have, you get the equivalent in Pulse. But what he does is he times by 100 or 1,000 the amount of Pulse that there actually are. So effectively, you're just getting kind of 1% of the supply. So in that case, I mean, he's got something up his sleeve with how he wants to distribute Pulse, and he definitely doesn't want to give it away. He wants it to be, like, I think at most to be kind of worth like a $40 giveaway to everybody, and probably it have zero cost. There'll be some other kind of mechanism that he'll use to distribute the Pulse, and we don't know what that is yet.
Blue Bum, did you see what David Feder put in the comments? He said Hexicans are not getting free Pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, I know. Yeah.
yeah.
No ERC20. But if they hold ETH, then they might get a very free Pulse. Or what he's also talked about is doing the same thing he did with Bitcoin, like on other chains. So if you have Monero, you can sign a transaction, and you can pick up a certain amount of free Pulse through signing that transaction, and he could do that with a whole lot of different chains. So we might see like the whole of crypto trying to claim some Pulse.
See, I'm hoping that there's no free claiming on any of it. Like I think that because when you get something for free, you're likely to dump it, and so I think that like just by like having people buy it, I think that's like a really strong.
There's loads of people who picked up Hex from their Bitcoin, and yeah, a lot of people like did the minimum stake length and then dumped it. But there's a whole lot of people that when I did it, I just chucked it out like 4.5 or 5 years or something. Like I kind of, and that was before I knew. That was when I knew very little about Hex. I just thought, oh yeah, I'm getting this free money, and you can stake it, and it might be worth heaps in the future. Yeah, I'll chuck it out, bang. Like, so it worked for it worked for a lot of people. It didn't work for a lot of other people. Well, it didn't work how Richard wanted it for a lot of other people, and you can't really like determine how people are going to behave. But I think it did work. You still had billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin claiming, and those people that dumped it, that was an opportunity for other people to buy it up at a cheaper price. So
that's a good point there too. And I mean, even another solution, if you give away all of it, like this was something that I thought would, like when all these exchanges like Uniswap and 1inch were giving away the token, I was actually thinking that might have been a way to get around the being classified as a security. If you give it away for free and then you buy it from the people that sell it to you, then like you didn't sell them the security, they sold you, and so like that may be part of the strategy is like giving it away has like it alleviates other types of risks, whereas like just like directly listing and selling it. But I'm hoping for kind of like a like how a lot of tokens launched like recently on Uniswap, where there's like a liquidity pool set, and then like it's just for sale. I think that could be like a good simple way to do it, where and maybe supplement that with like an airdrop as a marketing technique. But I think that like I'm hoping for it to be mainly like a for sale thing, and because then that'll like I think that the ROI from like by making a good trade there might be greater than like with the giveaway ROI.
The thing with that is everyone will have the where did the ETH go kind of thing, and my guess is he wants to avoid that as well. But like it's interesting. Yeah. I kind of think, why don't you just give it all away for free, and then let's let the market decide what the price is. Like,
yeah, that's like and also I mean part of what drives the fees on Ethereum up so high is that the ETH price is so high, and so if like if like that maybe the Pulse token doesn't need to appreciate the price, and so if that's the case, then like
he definitely wants to put some sort of pumpermentals into Pulse. Hence what that he said fee burning.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely and like you do want a high market cap because that's one of the best advertising things. You know, people will, if it's, they'll want Pulse to be top 10, if not, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at BNB, like where was that? And then they launched that BSC chain, and the bang, it's number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like that went up hugely in value after they did that. So I think he kind of saw that and went,
But look at Uniswap. Look at Uniswap. I mean, look how well that's doing, really. I mean, imagine, you know, something like that happen. That'd be awesome, you know.
Well, BNB's even higher than Uniswap.
Yeah, how much is that trading for now?
BNB's like, I'll go and have a look.
It's over 1,000 Australian dollars. I know that.
It's 485 US. So it's got a nearly a $75 billion market cap, BNB. And it sounds like that's what he's going to model.
BNB, yeah. I thought you meant Bitcoin Cash.
Now, Bitcoin Cash is doing really well as well.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's dropped. Everything's dumping, so it's dropped 20%. But even so, just a little while ago, I think it was $500. Now it's $890.
How funny would it be if like, you know, rolled it out and you only had to buy it, and then with all the ETH that was collected from that, he went and unstaked everyone's locked stakes. Like it turned into like an end stake fund for the Hexicans. Like, you know, that would be like a pretty amazing thing. Like for him to solidify as the giving tree, like is like, you know, because that dude, like, I mean, think about it. Like, so if he, you know, or people related to him, you know, have a major percentage of the total supply and most of it is held liquid, he's the one paying the 40% APY. Like on my hex.cash site, there's
well, he's also Poseidon. The OA, if you're talking about the OA, so if you go into Hex Pro, people have done, and there's a guy on Twitter here that they've done the OA kind of thing, and the OA holds 50, I think it's 53% or 55% or something like that of the liquid hex. But also the OA is a Poseidon, so they hold around like more than 10% of the shares.
I'll have to see because on my site there's a line that I think is like one of the most important lines in Hex, and it's like the threshold for how much Hex you have, how many T shares you need in order to maintain pace with the inflation. Because if you're earning like, you know, less, like if you know the total supply is inflating faster than your amount is increasing, then you're paying inflation. So I'll have to kind of estimate where on that is, because, you know, like the people that pay the most of the inflation are the largest liquid holders. And if he's one of the largest liquid holders, that's what's enabling the APY to be so high. So in a way, he's like paying that to everybody, and he's like the largest payer of that. And so, you know, like you know, I think the worst case scenario would be for him to like stake all of it max length and just like eat up all the yield. That could drive the price up, but you know,
but that's not the function of the OA. The function of the OA is to keep it a stable system that is very attractive to retail at the moment. Like they want to onboard. He wants to keep onboarding people. Like so like there are other whales who don't stake as well. And the reason they don't stake is because they want to make it attractive for retail, because they want the coin to pump to $10 before they.
That's there's a whole other realm of like strategy around, like, you know, massive
the long-term kind of game, the real long-term game. So cool, guys. We've gone about 2 hours. I think maybe we could we could probably cut it short there. Sammy, have you got any other questions or?
No, thanks for watching, and nice to meet you, Dipcatcher, and nice to see you again, Blue Bum.
Yeah, thanks heaps, Sammy, for coming on. Always love having you on. And Dipcatcher, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really appreciate it. If people want to catch you on Twitter, they just look up Dipcatcher and you come up.
Yeah, Dipcatcher or Tonto Nominai.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
if they check out your website, dipcatcher.com, there's all sorts of goodies and interesting things on there. Oh yeah, before I go, also I just want to for any other Australians who are watching, that we're having an Australian meetup, an actual physical meetup that's going to be on that weekend of the 24th of June. We're going to do Thursday in Nimbin, then we're going to do Friday in Vegas, and then Saturday and Sunday we're heading off to Stradbroke Island, catching the ferry over. And so you can come to all of them or come to one of them. It's going to be awesome. Highly recommend it. There's lots of different kind of accommodation options. So if you're short of cash, there'll be options. If you're cashed up, there's always options, and it'll be really great to like see you all. Sapper and T-Bird's going to be there. He lives probably near Nimbin, I think. And I probably shouldn't say that. Sorry, T-Bird, but yeah. And Sammy's going to come up, aren't you, Sammy? She's working out a way to do it.
Hopefully, if we're COVID free still by then.
Yeah, let's just assume we are. Yeah. Tickets are cheap as chips at the moment in Australia, so you've got no excuses, anyone. And Dip Catcher, once again, thanks heaps, man, for coming on. You've been
awesome. I had a great time with you all. Awesome,
brilliant. And I can't even. I had a whole lot of videos that I was gonna, but someone knocked them all off, so I can't. Or maybe I'll just put in. Oh, this is pretty funny, actually. I'll just end on this. This is apparently Ethereum maxis and Bitcoin maxis having a fight in India. See you, everyone.
Bye.
चौधरी मोहम्मद अल्ताफ साहब चकबराम तशरीफ लाए जी यार वेलकम हाँ जी नासर ने भी लवारे थे मिठू शाह सा मल्तान जफे थे क्या बात है सैयद हाँ 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 क्या बात जी में सैयद वाह कौडी दा मुल कौडी वाह जी वाह